Moonlight becomes you, I'm thrilled at the sight, and I could get so romantic tonight. You're all dressed up to go dreaming, now don't tell me I'm wrong. And what a night to go dreaming, mind if I tag along? If I say I love you, I want you to know it's not just because of moonlight, although moonlight becomes you so. G'day, Geranium Man here. You know, one of the biggest fallacies and the biggest load of bunk I've ever read is that you should only cut geraniums on a full moon. Please explain. Where is the logic behind that nonsense? Where is the science? It's absolute bunk. There's a lot of bunk about propagating geraniums, and there's three main rules that you must follow. Hygiene, hygiene, hygiene. When you're taking a cutting, it's important that you have 2 pairs of secateurs and you sit them in methylated spirits. This kills any potential pathogens on the secateur blade, and you rotate them between each plant. So when you've cut one plant like that, you harvest cuttings, you put them away, you rotate them and get a fresh pair, and you go on to the second plant. This will eliminate any potential diseases that that plant may have, cannot be transmitted to that plant when you cut it. Absolutely essential. The second one, and one of the most important factors, is water. Water is the biggest transmitter of disease in horticulture. We all drink town water and we think it's clean and fresh, but then explain to me why if you fill up a swimming pool with town water, within a few days it's gone green with algae. Because the algae, the spores, are in the town water, and the town water is also carrying other spores that are detrimental to plants. So it's easily fixed. Get a bottle of Dettol, we all know Dettol, get an eyedropper. You must always measure to be a scientist, don't just bung it in. 5 drops in 10 litres of water, that's all it needs. Let it sit there for a minute or two, and that'll clean any potential spores in that water. Give it a bit of a stir. Thirdly, make sure your prop media is clean. So go to your garden centre or nursery and look for coir pith that's wrapped in plastic. That means it's pretty sterile. It's very clean and it makes an ideal media for cuttings. So have a look for that. You then have to soak that koi. I've already pre-soaked this to expand it. Put that in your seed raising tray as such. See how open it is? It's full of air, which is what the roots need. Just pat that down and then saturate this with the water that you've sterilised with Dettol to give that a good watering in. Now, for the first month while the geraniums are setting root, you must water with Dettol in the watering can to ensure that you get maximum yield from your cuttings. If you don't, you'll lose quite a few of them to rots from set out by various pathogens. So make sure that's saturated with clean water before you use it, and this will ensure a really good propagation rate. Now, cuttings. You've now finished cutting back the plants that were scrappy and needed to be cut back, so now you have a pile of potential cuttings like this. Now, it's no good trying to set something like that. That will not root. There's no way this plant could sustain itself at this size without a root system. There's plenty, but what you need to do is take very small tip cuttings like that, and you peel all the leaves off, leave one leaf, and it's that size, tiny. They make the best cuttings, they survive the best, and they make the most aggressive roots. You then stick that in the tray. So the best to do, just tip cuttings like that. Strip the leaf back. That's the size of it. Now you don't need to use rooting powder. People always ask me, do you need to use rooting powder? Okay, let's just imagine I put powder in here. I take a cutting. Let's find a little piece. I take a cutting, and this particular piece is diseased. I stick that in the powder. All right, put it in the tray. Now this powder is potentially diseased and may well contaminate every other cutting that you put into that powder. Rooting powder is not necessary. It doesn't make any difference to the success of whether they root or not. In fact, it can contribute to adding to their diseases and causing them to rot. So tiny little cuttings put into a tray. A tray like this size, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 across, and we'll probably go 6 that way. So 24. So you note that they have lots of air around them. This would potentially eliminate the risk for botrytis. You have to remember, when a plant hasn't got roots, it doesn't have vigour, and if it doesn't have vigour, it's then subject to being destroyed by disease or pathogen or insects or anything. It's very, very vulnerable at this stage. So you have to be particularly careful how much you space them. Once again, just below the node, a node is where it branches. That's the node, and that you just leave a little leg to secure it. Water them in thoroughly, and then find a nice 50% shade place to put them, maybe on a veranda, a balcony, where there's a polycarbonate roof where it gets some sunlight through, but not too hot in the dead of summer. You'll burn them. So they have to have a bit of shade through summer, otherwise they'll just burn off before they have a chance to do that. Now you've got to water them with the Dettol for 4 weeks. Once they've rooted and calcified, they're then fine. So while that wound is open, it's susceptible to become infected by a waterborne pathogen. So just be very careful about that for the first 4 weeks. Then you should have hundreds of geraniums. You won't need to come and buy them from me. Lucky you. So the next time there's a full moon, put your secateurs away, grab a bottle of wine, get your beloved, and go for a stroll down the beach. And maybe you'll discover a more pleasant type of propagating. Moonlight becomes you, it goes with your hair. You certainly know the right things to wear. You're all dressed up to go dreaming. Now don't tell me I'm wrong. And what a night to go dreaming. Mind if I tag along? If I say I love you, I want you to know it's not just because of moonlight, although moonlight becomes you so.